For 6 months, Maya Johnson brought breakfast to an old man every single morning. Not sometimes, not when it was easy, every morning. At 6:15 a.m., without fail, she stood at the same cracked bus stop beside an abandoned laundromat, holding a brown paper bag in a dented thermos. Inside the bag, a peanut butter sandwich, a banana, sometimes an apple if she could afford it. Inside the thermos, hot black coffee. Maya was 22 years old, black, exhausted, and barely surviving. She worked 2 jobs, one at a hospital cafeteria during the day, another stocking shelves at a grocery store late into the night just to keep a roof over her head. The man she fed was Henry Caldwell. He was 68, white, homeless, and slept on flattened cardboard wrapped in a threadbare wool blanket. Most people said he was just another old man with wild stories no one believed. But Maya never asked if his stories were true. She just showed up. 6 months later, everything changed. At dawn, loud official knocks echoed through Maya's apartment hallway. She opened the door wearing her hospital uniform, hair pulled back, eyes heavy from a double shift. 3 military officers stood outside. Dress uniforms, polished shoes, straight backs. A colonel stood at attention. Maya's heart dropped. "Miss Johnson," the colonel said gravely, "we're here about Henry Caldwell." Her voice shook. "Henry? The old man from the bus stop? Did something happen to him?" The colonel paused. "Ma'am, we need to talk about what you did for him." 6 months earlier. Maya first noticed Henry in early March. She took the number 47 bus every morning at 6:30 a.m. The stop was 3 blocks from her apartment, right outside a closed laundromat with boarded-up windows. That's where Henry slept. Cardboard on concrete, a trash bag holding everything he owned, a blanket pulled to his chin. Most people avoided him. Some crossed the street, others pretended he didn't exist. For 2 weeks, Maya did the same. She told herself she couldn't afford to help anyone else. She barely had enough for herself. Then, one morning, she packed an extra sandwich by mistake. Her hospital shift ran until 3 p.m. Her grocery shift started at 4. She knew the sandwich would go bad in her locker. When she reached the bus stop, Henry was awake. His eyes were sharp, clearer than she expected. Not dull, not lost. Watching. She hesitated, then stepped closer. "Excuse me," Maya said softly, holding out the sandwich. "I made too much. You want this?" Henry stared at the sandwich, then at her. For a long moment he didn't move. "You need that more than I do," he said quietly. I shrugged. "That's debatable, but I'm offering." He took it with both hands, carefully, like it was fragile. "Thank you, miss," he said. "Maya." He nodded once. Henry Caldwell." She almost walked away, almost went back to pretending she didn't see him. But something in the way he said "thank you," with dignity, not desperation, made her pause. "How do you take your coffee? Black or with sugar?" His eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Black is fine." The next morning, she brought coffee and a banana. The morning after that, another sandwich. By the end of the first week, it was a routine she couldn't imagine breaking. 6:15 a.m. every day. They talked for 5 minutes, sometimes 10, before her bus arrived. He asked about her life, she asked about his. He told strange stories. "Back in my helicopter days," he'd say, staring past her, "we flew people to places that don't exist on maps." Or, "I worked for a 3-letter agency once. Can't tell you which one, but those folks don't forget faces." Maya assumed he was confused, maybe lonely, maybe building a past that felt bigger than sleeping on cardboard. She never corrected him. She just listened. One morning, a man in an expensive suit walked past and kicked Henry's blanket into the gutter. Maya spun around. "Hey, what's wrong with you?" "He's blocking the sidewalk," the man snapped, never slowing down. "That's somebody's grandfather," Maya shot back. The man walked away. Henry quietly pulled the wet blanket back toward him. His hands trembled. Maya helped him wring it out.
"You didn't have to do that," Henry said. "Yes, I did." He looked at her for a long moment, then smiled sadly. "You've got a fight in you. You're going to need it." Maya didn't understand what he meant. Not yet.
By May, the routine was as natural as breathing. Maya woke up at 5 a.m., made 2 sandwiches, one for Henry, one for herself. She poured coffee into the thermos, grabbed a banana, and walked 3 blocks to the bus stop. She sat with Henry for 10 minutes every morning. It didn't feel like charity. It felt like the only thing in her life that made sense. Maya lived in a tiny studio apartment on the 4th floor of a building that should have been condemned years ago. 300 square feet, a hot plate instead of a stove, a shower that only worked if you kicked the pipes first. Rent was $650 a month. She was always behind. An eviction notice had been taped to her door in March. She begged the landlord for time. He agreed, $40 extra every week until she caught up. That meant every other bill got pushed aside. Her kitchen counter told the truth she tried not to face. Electric bill, past due. Medical debt from an ER visit, in collections. Student loan payment, deferred again. Phone bill, 1 month from disconnection. In the middle of all the papers sat a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. One Tuesday night, Maya stood in her kitchen doing math in her head. Hospital paycheck, $280. Grocery store paycheck, $160. Subtract rent, subtract the payment plan, subtract bus fare. She had $90 left for everything. She opened the fridge. 3 eggs, half a jug of milk, wilted lettuce she should have thrown out days ago. That was it. Her stomach was empty, but she ignored it. She'd learned how. What mattered was the bread. Enough for another week of sandwiches for Henry, maybe 2 if she stretched it. She leaned her forehead against the cold refrigerator door. She could stop. She could keep the food for herself, save the coffee money, pay the electric bill before it got shut off. Henry would understand. He'd probably tell her to stop if he knew how bad things were. But the thought of walking past that bus stop, seeing him there, and not stopping, she couldn't do it. The next day at work, Mrs. Lin, the cafeteria supervisor, noticed. She'd worked at the hospital for 30 years. She missed nothing. "You eaten today?" Mrs. Lin asked, watching Maya wipe tables during lunch rush. "I ate breakfast," Maya lied. Mrs. Lin crossed her arms. "Are you feeding that homeless man again?" Maya stiffened. "His name is Henry." "I know his name," Mrs. Lin said gently. "I'm asking if you're feeding him instead of yourself." "I'm fine." Mrs. Lin disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a container of leftover pasta and a bread roll. She pressed it into Maya's hands. "Eat, now." Then softer. "He's a person, I get it, but so are you." Maya swallowed hard. "Thank you." "Don't thank me, just eat." That night, Maya lay on her mattress on the floor. She'd sold the bed frame months ago to make rent. She stared at the ceiling, calculating again. Skip her Thursday class, pick up an extra shift, $40. Walk to work instead of taking the bus, save $12. Her phone buzzed. Final notice from the electric company. Service would be disconnected in 7 days unless she paid $127. Maya closed her eyes. "1 more week," she whispered. "1 more week of bringing Henry breakfast." Then she'd stop. She'd explain it. That's what made sense. But Friday morning came, and she still made 2 sandwiches, still poured coffee into the thermos, still walked 3 blocks. Henry was waiting. Same spot, same cardboard. When she handed him the sandwich, he quietly split it half and half and gave part back to Maya. "Fair's fair," he said. Maya turned away so he wouldn't see her cry. Monday morning, Henry wasn't there. No cardboard, no blanket, no trash bag. Nothing. Maya waited. Her bus came and went, then the next one. By the 3rd bus, she was late for work and her chest felt hollow. He just moved, she told herself. People do that. That evening, she checked again. Nothing. Tuesday, empty. Wednesday, empty. By Thursday, fear settled deep in her stomach. She walked 10 extra blocks to a homeless shelter. "I'm looking for someone.
Henry Caldwell, older man, sleeps near the bus stop on Clayton. The woman at the desk barely looked up. We don't track people who don't check in. Can you just look? Maya pleaded. The woman typed, sighed, then shook her head. No record. Maya called 3 hospitals that night. None would give her information. On the 7th day, she left a paper bag at the bus stop with a note inside. Hope you're okay. She hated herself for leaving food for someone who felt like a ghost. That afternoon, Henry was back. Thinner, paler. Maya almost missed her stop because she wasn't expecting to see him. She jumped off the bus and ran back. Henry! He looked up slowly. Miss Maya? Where were you? She demanded. I checked shelters. I called hospitals. Had a spell, he said quietly. I'm up right now. That counts. Then she noticed his hand, a fresh surgical scar, too clean to be an accident. What happened to your hand? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope. If something happens to me, he said firmly, mail this. Maya frowned. You're not going anywhere. Promise me. She took the envelope. I promise. Henry exhaled like a weight had lifted.
2 weeks later, Henry collapsed. It happened on a quiet morning. Maya was handing him the thermos of coffee when his hand began to shake, not the usual tremor from cold or age. This was different, violent. The thermos slipped from his fingers and hit the sidewalk, coffee splashing everywhere. Henry? He tried to speak, but the words came out slurred. His eyes rolled back. Then his knees buckled. Maya caught him before his head hit the concrete. Someone call 911, she screamed. A woman across the street pulled out her phone. A man in jogging clothes slowed down, then kept running. 2 people getting off the bus just stared. Maya lowered Henry onto his side. His breathing was shallow, uneven. Stay with me, she whispered. Please, stay with me. The ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. It felt like 7 hours. Maya climbed into the back of the ambulance without asking. Are you family? A paramedic asked. I'm all he's got, she said, gripping Henry's hand. No one argued. At the hospital, everything moved too fast and too slow. Doctors rushed Henry through double doors. A nurse guided Maya to a waiting area with bolted green chairs and flickering fluorescent lights. Maya realized she was still holding the empty thermos. Her shift had started 20 minutes ago. She texted Mrs. Lin. Emergency, can't come in, I'm sorry. The reply came instantly. Are you okay? Henry collapsed. I'm at St. Vincent's. I'll cover you, stay there. Maya closed her eyes and finally let herself breathe. An hour passed, then another. Finally, a nurse called her name. Maya Johnson? Yes. The nurse led her to a desk where a tired intake clerk stared at a computer. You're here for Henry Caldwell? The woman asked. Yes, is he okay? He's stable, severe dehydration, possible stroke. Relief washed over Maya until the clerk continued. But we have a problem. Maya's stomach dropped. He has no ID, no insurance, no emergency contact. The clerk sighed. We'll need to transfer him to County General. Maya knew what that meant. Overcrowded, underfunded, people waiting days for care. He's a veteran, Maya blurted out. Check the VA system. The clerk raised an eyebrow. Do you have proof? No, but then I can't check. Maya thought of the envelope at home, the stories, the helicopters. What if he wasn't lying? I'm his niece, Maya said suddenly. The clerk looked up. His niece? Yes. And you don't have paperwork? He's been living on the street. He doesn't keep documents in his pocket. A doctor nearby looked over. Run the check, he said calmly. The clerk hesitated, then typed. The seconds stretched. Then the screen beeped. Her expression changed. There's a match, she said quietly. Henry Robert Caldwell, honorable discharge, service record, heavily redacted. The doctor leaned closer. Classified service, he murmured. The clerk looked at Maya differently now. What exactly did your uncle do? Maya swallowed. I don't know. That was true. She just never believed him. Henry was transferred to a long-term VA care facility that same day. When Maya finally saw him, he looked small in the hospital bed,
swallowed by white sheets and beeping machines. "You didn't have to," he whispered. "Yes, I did." He squeezed her hand weakly. "You kept your promise," he murmured. Henry was moved to a long-term VA care facility 3 weeks later. Clean rooms, real beds, hot meals. Maya visited whenever she could, 2 buses and a long walk each time. One afternoon, Maya found Henry writing in a small notebook. "These are my memories, things that matter." He handed it to her. "If anyone ever asks, you'll know what's true." She slipped it into her bag next to the envelope, 2 pieces of a puzzle she didn't understand yet. Henry died on a Tuesday morning in late August. The facility called at 6 a.m. "Miss Johnson?" Henry passed peacefully in his sleep. Maya stood frozen in her kitchen, coffee pot in her hand. Gone. She went to the facility that day. They handed her a small bag of belongings and an envelope addressed to her. Inside was a photograph. Henry, decades younger, standing in a military uniform, medals across his chest. 2 powerful men stood beside him. On the back, 3 words were written. "Remember the girl." Maya's hands trembled. She went home and opened the envelope Henry had asked her to mail.
Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter. Maya sat on the floor of her tiny apartment, back against the wall, reading it with shaking hands. "To whoever reads this, most likely General Eleanor Whitmore, if this address still works. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. I don't have much to leave behind. No family, no money, nothing that matters to the world. But I want you to know about someone who mattered to me. Her name is Maya Johnson." Maya stopped breathing. For 6 months, she brought me breakfast every single morning. Not because she had to, not because anyone was watching. She did it because she saw me when everyone else looked away. The system forgot me 20 years ago, and I was fine with that. But she didn't forget. This country took everything I gave and then buried me in paperwork. But this girl, this struggling, tired, beautiful girl, gave me dignity when I had nothing. She deserves better than what this country gave me. Remember her, the way she remembered me. Henry Caldwell, GS-14, retired. Maya read the letter 3 times. Then she looked at the address. Pentagon, Office of the Inspector General. Henry hadn't been confused. He hadn't been exaggerating. He'd been telling the truth. The next morning, Maya stood in line at the post office. The envelope felt heavy in her hands. She almost turned back, almost decided it didn't matter. But she'd made a promise. "I need to send this," she said. The clerk waited. $5.60. Maya paid with crumpled bills. The envelope disappeared into a bin. Just another letter. 2 weeks passed. Then one morning at 6 a.m., there was a knock. Not casual, official. Maya opened the door. 3 military officers stood in the hallway. A colonel stepped forward. "Miss Maya Johnson," he said. "I'm Colonel Harris. We're here about Henry Caldwell." Her heart pounded. "General Whitmore received his letter," the colonel continued. "She wants to meet you." Maya had never been on a plane before. The military arranged everything. Flight, hotel, escort. The next morning, Maya walked into the Pentagon feeling like she didn't belong in any of it. General Eleanor Whitmore stood when Maya entered her office. "I failed Henry Caldwell," the general said plainly. She explained everything. Henry had been one of the finest intelligence officers of his time. Classified missions, lives saved, files lost. PTSD, a bureaucratic error, years of silence. "We forgot him," the general said. "But he didn't forget you." "I want to fix this," Whitmore continued. "A memorial fund in Henry's name, a review of every classified veteran lost in the system." Then she looked at Maya.
And I want you to testify." Maya shook her head. "I'm nobody." Whitmore's voice was firm. "Character matters more than rank." 3 weeks later, Maya sat before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Cameras everywhere. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. "I brought Henry breakfast," she said. "That's it. A sandwich, coffee." She looked directly at the senators. "I kept my promise with food. The system broke its promise with paperwork." The room went silent. That day, the Henry Caldwell Memorial Fund was created. Millions allocated. Oversight demanded. Maya was appointed community liaison. She didn't ask for it. She accepted it. 1 year later, Henry was buried at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. Maya knelt and placed a peanut butter sandwich on his grave. "I kept my promise," she whispered. Maya still wakes up early, still makes coffee, still believes small things aren't small. Because kindness doesn't need permission, and dignity should never depend on paperwork.